Many of you have been asking the question, what the hell happened to the Republican Party? It can be difficult to notice changes sometimes when those changes happen slowly. Let's take a look at how the Republican Party has changed over a longer period of time and then talk about exactly how it happened. I am going to play a clip for you here of William F. Buckley talking with Noam Chomsky in 1969. Now, when you do a progressive show, there is no conservative that you can put up as an example that your left-wing audience, in this case, my left-wing audience, will agree, yeah, this is an example of sort of like normal conservatism. We disagree with conservatism. I understand that. Now, I know many of you will say, David, Buckley's a loser. He was a pompous, condescending clown. Okay. Buckley had a set of principles. He argued them, what I would consider by today's standards, respectfully. He stood for something. He engaged with people with whom he disagreed. Check this out. This was one flavor of conservatism in the Republican Party in the late 60s, and it lasted into the 70s, into the early 80s. Okay, here's William F. Buckley talking with Noam Chomsky.
Well, quite so, but you also say that you hate yourself for not having come to that position earlier.
Yeah, I do. I think that was a very great mistake.
Well, I hope to give you a little solace in the course of the evening. But the reason I do raise this, and I rejoice in your disposition to argue the Vietnam question, especially when I recognize what an act of self-control this must involve.
It does.
Sure.
It really does. I mean, I think that this is the kind of issue where sometimes I lose my temper. Maybe not tonight.
Maybe not tonight. Because if you would, I'd smash you in the goddamn face. You say in your book,
reason for not losing my temper.
You say the war is simply an obscenity, a depraved act by weak and miserable men.
Including all of us. Including myself,
well,
including that's the next sentence, same sentence.
Sure, because you count everybody in the company of the guilty.
I think that's true in this case.
Yeah, but
see, one of the points I was
trying... This is a sense of theological...
Okay, so anyway, these are really interesting debates and conversations. That was like what the Republican Party, one part of it, right? We can find wacky examples as well, but you could talk to these people, okay? They operated in something that approached reality. Here are some examples of the modern Republican Party.
Not only do we have the D.C. jail, which is the D.C. gulag, but now we have Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police spying on members of Congress, spying on the legislative work that we do.
Gazpacho police. That's Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here is another example of the modern Republican Party.
About Ted Cruz lately in the news. And contrary to popular belief, I have never been an escort for Senator Ted Cruz. But I will tell you tonight, it is the coolest thing I've ever heard about Ted Cruz.
There you go. That's a radical Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. And then, of course, the modern Republican Party.
Numerous categories were lower than the world.
Lower than the
lower
world?
than what's Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
You can't do that. You have
Why
to go,
can't I do that?
You have to go by where. Look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why not as a proportion of population?
When we have somebody. What it says is when you have somebody that has where there's a case.
Oh, okay.
The people that live from those cases.
All right. That's a major contrast. Okay. Point made. Now you could say, well, but the modern Republican Party also has people like Mitt Romney in it. How much attention do they get? They have been pushed to the fringes. So how did this happen? And this is the story that I've told before. In fact, when I interviewed Noam Chomsky, we talked about this story. Whatever you think about Noam Chomsky, I'm just saying there's a discussion about this story in that interview. And the path is more or less as follows, from the William F. Buckley clip to what I just played for you from the Orange Menace. The civil rights era set off a period of extreme instability in the American right, where many in the American right did not like what the civil rights era brought. When they talk about their worldview, we say it sort of sounds like they want to go back to the 1950s. That's exactly right. Before the civil rights era, which started, you could argue 58, or different people would put it at a different point. That and the attempt to level the playing field in many ways started to anger much of the right, where not William F. Buckley, but others started to get away from what we might now call that principled conservatism of a certain point. Through the Vietnam War and into the Reagan era, we saw this shift into what we might call more kind of like meme politics from the right. Actor Ronald Reagan comes up with stuff like, the Cadillac driving welfare mom, and starting to make these caricatures of people hanging out, living richly on welfare, and on and on. Although Reagan was still sort of reasonable compared to the modern Republican Party on something like immigration, but that was just one step. We then go from Reagan, and I'm condensing the story, to Bill Clinton knocking out one term, making George H.W. Bush a one-term president, which in 1992 significantly angered many in the Republican Party, to then Newt Gingrich becoming Speaker of the House in 1994 in the 1994 midterms. That was the next escalation. It's not even really an escalation. It's like if you have rhetoric on one side and policy on the other, it continued the shift of the Republican Party from policy to rhetoric. Newt Gingrich in 1994, starting to develop the more cartoonish social conservative, starting to get a little bit more detached from policy. Then, when you had the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal, it escalated what we could probably call Clinton derangement syndrome, Kenneth Starr's investigation, etc. And then it set the stage for the first, what I would call the modern kind of like dumb Republican, George W. Bush. Now, George W. Bush, I'm sure personally he's a nice guy, and in some of he has been more thoughtful in some of the statements he's made publicly since leaving office, particularly over the last 5 to 6 years. But George W. Bush, with his made-up words and confusion about foreign policy and all these things, ushered in the first kind of like, intellectually lightweight, in the more modern way, movement in the Republican Party. Then Barack Obama won, and it just unleashed, and even you took the Bush contingent or constituency and added some overt racism, and that was the next escalation. And then, of course, then ultimately we got to Trump. That's the path. That's the 40, 50-year path, and it's really important to understand it when we think about how we got from William F. Buckley to Donald Trump, right? The guy who's staring at a solar eclipse and saying, what about injecting bleach? It's a sad decline, and it's unclear where the Republican Party goes next, but it's good to know how we got here.